Hello, it's Larissa Coe. Today we'll talk about how to write an argumentative essay. So first you need to study your topic. A lot of times you'll be given a prompt and you need to learn a lot about that prompt so that you can form an opinion. Next, you write a claim or a thesis statement that answers the prompt. So an example of a prompt would be, why aren't there more girls in leadership roles? So you want to break down the prompt. Sometimes a prompt is more of a yes or no question. In this case, I need to give reasons because this prompt is asking why. So I wrote 2 example claims or thesis statements that would answer that prompt. First one, girls tend to choose more traditionally feminine roles because long-standing traditions still have a power in society. The next one, while many girls would enjoy leadership roles, they are not looked at as powerful and decisive because of gender bias, so others are less likely to select them for leadership roles. So I answered the same question 2 different ways. That's where all of the studying comes in. You need to know a lot about the topic in order to form a solid opinion about it. But once you have your thesis or claim, you are ready to continue. Once you've written your thesis or claim, you need to start thinking about how you're going to persuade your audience. I recommend writing down ethos, logos, and pathos, and then jotting down notes on how you are going to include all 3 in your essay. The first is ethos, or appeal to authority. So you want to ask, how trustworthy am I coming off? Am I speaking about subjects that I have some kind of authority to speak about? Also, if you yourself maybe don't have a lot of authority on the subject, you can use quotes and information from doctors or people that are respected in society, and that can add ethos to your argumentative essay as well. Next up is logos, or an appeal to logic. So how are you going to explain your point in a logical way? And what evidence are you going to use to support your point? This will be a lot of your essay, so make sure you have a lot of good reasoning. And last of all is pathos. Pathos is an appeal to emotion. So how are you going to try to make the reader feel in order to agree with you? And what stories or tactics will you use to make the reader feel this way? Once you've thought about how you're going to persuade your audience of your point, it's time to organize your evidence and outline your essay. So in an argumentative essay, your first paragraph is going to be your intro paragraph. You'll start with a hook or an interesting sentence to grab the reader's attention and make them want to keep reading. You have background information. That's where you're going to briefly introduce key topics and texts. The thesis statement is the thing that we already established. You're going to clearly state your claim in 1 to 2 sentences. Clear is key. You want to make it no mistake that you answered the prompt. Next up is your body paragraphs, which each consist of a topic sentence with a transition, the main point of the body paragraph. Explanations and evidence, that's where you add your reasoning, your stories, your defenses. You're going to argue for your claim and really persuade the reader that you are correct. You want to give examples and evidence to support your explanations. A lot of students forget the concluding sentence. This is always going to fall after your evidence and explanations, in which you wrap up what you're saying in this body paragraph. 1 or 2 of your body paragraphs will be your counterclaim and rebuttal. So a counterclaim is when you explain an idea about the topic that opposes or goes against your own. So you may wonder, why would I want to include an opinion that's different than mine in my essay? The reason is to strengthen your argument, actually, because then you come back, you acknowledge that there's another opinion, but you respond to the counterclaim in a way that will keep the reader on your side. So you don't necessarily have to say, there's this opinion and it's completely false and bogus. You can give merit to the counterclaim, but then you come back and explain why, even though there's this other opinion, my opinion is still right. And then you wrap the whole thing up with your conclusion, which will include a summary and a concluding thought. That's where you want to leave the reader with something to think about. And a lot of times you can relate it back to the hook, and it'll make the essay seem really complete. Now go back through your outline and check your logic. You want to avoid logical fallacies, which are errors in reasoning, because these will weaken your argument. I will briefly explain each of these, but you could definitely investigate more into these. So the first is hasty generalization, which is when there isn't enough evidence to support your conclusion. An example, a flashlight won't work. You take out the batteries and throw them away because they must be dead. The reason it's wrong is because you don't have enough evidence to conclude that the batteries are dead. The flashlight could be broken and the batteries fully charged. So in your essay, make sure that you have enough explanations and reasoning that bring us to the conclusion or the claim that you wrote. Post hoc is when you incorrectly assume one thing causes the next. So an example, every time I see 2 yellow cars in a row on the way to school, I have a horrible day. The cars are a bad omen. So obviously seeing 2 yellow cars in a row does not cause bad things to happen. Even if 2 things are correlated or happen around the same time or the same place, doesn't mean that one causes the other. Next is ad misericordiam. That's trying to make someone feel emotional instead of giving the facts. So in a job interview, if the boss asks someone what his qualifications are, and then the interviewee replies that he has a crippled wife and that his children have nothing to eat, that's not answering the question. That's just trying to get the boss to feel sorry for him instead. So again, you can definitely use pathos and try to get the audience to feel a certain way, but you need to balance it out with logic as well. A false analogy is comparing two unlike situations. So for example, students should be allowed to look at their textbooks during examinations since surgeons have x-rays to guide them during an operation. The reason that's not a strong argument is because doctors aren't taking a test to see how much they've learned, whereas students are. They're doing 2 very different things. Therefore, the situations are too different to compare reasonably. All right, here's one more set of logical fallacies to avoid. Straw man is exaggerating someone's argument and then attacking that exaggeration that you made. So person 1 says pollution from humans contributes to climate change. Person 2 says, so you think humans are directly responsible for extreme weather? Then maybe we just need to go perform a rain dance. So obviously person 2 is exaggerating what person 1 says and blaming humans for all weather, and that's not what person 1 was doing. So that's straw man fallacy. Poisoning the well is attacking someone's character before the audience has heard their argument. This could be used in your counterclaim. You don't want to start by saying, before you listen to my opponent, may I remind you that he has been in jail and cannot be trusted. The reason is because the well has been poisoned, so to speak. The audience is less likely to listen to someone when they think they are untrustworthy. In your counterclaim, you want to choose a strong argument against your own, not just a weak one or not one that you're going to discredit right away because it has poor authority or ethos. A red herring is changing the subject to avoid discussing a certain topic. So a man asks a politician to explain why his record shows he's voted to decrease money for education. The politician responds that his record is impressive because he served in the military. That obviously is avoiding the question entirely and talking about another subject that just makes him seem better. Politicians certainly do this a lot, but you want to directly answer questions or directly respond to the counterclaim. Slippery slope is when a small event eventually leads to an exaggerated, undesired outcome. So, for example, we cannot let our child roam in the house. If she does, she will roam the neighborhood and get kidnapped. Therefore, we should keep her locked up in the closet. So this is wrong because even though the person is trying to use cause and effect and sound logical, they describe large, unlikely consequences. It's not a strong argument. So once you've checked your reasoning on your outline and made changes as needed, you're going to use that outline to write your essay. And don't forget to get feedback from other people. If you just type it up and submit it right away, it's not likely to be in its best form. So give it a chance, have some other people read it out loud yourself, and then revise and edit. And that is how you write an argumentative essay.